Hey guys, welcome to Diabetic 365, and today we have a very special guest who is working at Benaroya Diabetic Institute, where they do all this type 1 research there. So she's also been diabetic from quite a while. From how many years, Emily?
Actually, I was diagnosed in 2008.
2008. So it's been 3 years, and she is, I think, participating in all the research they are doing there at Benaroyaresearch Center. So let's get started. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on to the show. So tell us your story. When were you diagnosed, and what's your story?
I was diagnosed in April of 2008, during the last semester, or last week of the semester in college, so it was during finals week, and I had symptoms many months beforehand, but they were it was a slow progression. So it wasn't until the last month when things really went downhill, and I just remember feeling like the heaviest weight on my shoulders. Everything was so hard to do. I was so tired. It was so hard to go to class. And I just kept saying, it was just the stress of school, and as soon as the semester was over, everything would be fine. So I just kept waiting and putting it off until the end, and it actually, at the very end of the month, that's when my eyesight went completely blurry, and I couldn't finish the semester without going into the doctor. So when I drove myself to the doctor, was not a good idea because I couldn't see very well, and I was just, I had no idea what was going on, really. I went on the internet to see why my eyesight was going bad, but I had no history of diabetes. I had no idea what diabetes was. So when I got to the doctor and I told them my symptoms, and they told me, I really didn't know what it meant. And so it wasn't much of a shock, or I was scared or anything. I just didn't know. But they told me that my eyesight would return to normal, which was my biggest concern at the moment. And so then she told me that I needed to go to the hospital right away. And I drove myself there, and my family met me there. And I remember sitting there for hours, hooked up and scared. But the second that my blood sugar got into range, I remember just this overwhelming sense of joy that I finally had felt good, and I no longer blame myself for all the things that happened in the past months of not going to class and sleeping all the time, and it was stressful. And so when I actually cried from happiness when I felt good, and it was just such a relief. And I remember thinking that from that day on, I always wanted to feel that good. So I would do whatever it took to feel that way, which unfortunately meant the 8 to 10 times checking my blood sugar and the 6 injections a day. But if that's what it took, then that's what I had to do.
So you were diagnosed as type 1, right?
Yes.
Type 1. Oh, okay. So the second question is, you were diagnosed in 2008, and when did you start working at Benaroyaresearch Center?
I started working at Benaroya last year, 2010, and it was actually, it was a long way for me to get here, but after I was diagnosed, I was getting my care in Denver at the Barbara Davis Center, and I was getting exceptional care, and they asked me if I wanted to enter an intervention study, a new onset study, to help preserve the beta cells, my functioning beta cells, because I still was making quite a bit of insulin. And I agreed, so I'm still in that study, and I got to know the coordinators and the doctors very well, and they were all so dedicated, and the energy they had towards diabetes research was so inspiring, and they treated me so well and showed me how important research was. And through that experience, I really wanted to be part of that, to join a team that was just as passionate about research and diabetes and who got it, and to just be in that environment. So through getting to know them and their staff, I was able, and I wanted to be in Seattle. I was able to get a job here, and everyone I work with is just so passionate about research, and mostly everyone here has a connection to diabetes, to type 1, so that makes it even more meaningful.
Yeah, so the other question is, what kind of research are you guys doing, and can you please explain that?
Yeah, one of the aspects that we're doing is we're screening family members of people with type 1 the goal is prevention. So family members are at a much higher risk of developing type 1, so we like to get them in for screening to see if they have the autoantibodies, and the autoantibodies indicate that the immune system has already started attacking the pancreas. If we do find these family members that are at risk, then they have the option of continuing into a prevention study. However, if they choose not to enter a prevention study, we still closely monitor these people every 6 months to ensure that they will not have the sickness and those symptoms long before diagnosis that I had, and I'm sure many, many people have. And it's hard on your mind and it's hard on your body, so that's why it's really important to get screened.
Well, that's really wonderful, because right now, if you're obese or if you're kind of overweight and your BMI is higher in level, you can die. I mean, you are in a position to get type 2 diabetes, but this is really good because you can pre-diagnose if you have type 1 diabetes or not. So I think that's a lot information, and also there's a lot of good thing to the parents and also to the family members who have type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, it's very beneficial for the families to understand if their other family members are at risk. It's also very important to the researchers as well. So it's very important to get your family screened to see if they're at risk.
Since
at risk?
My question is, if your family member is already type 1 diabetic, like take a mother or father is already a type 1 diabetic, what percentage of their children are going to be diabetic? Like, what are the chances? 20%, 50%, 70%?
It's
from your research.
Yeah, well, we know that it's a higher risk for children if their dad has type 1, they're at a higher risk of developing type 1 more so than if the mother has type 1.
Oh, so if the dad has type 1, then they're more at risk.
Yes.
Okay. So.
However, even if your siblings have type 1, your cousins, you should still come in to be screened.
Oh, okay.
So even second-degree relatives are eligible, ages 1 through 20, to get the screening.
Okay. So what percentage of the people coming to your research are getting diagnosed with type 1 or pre-type 1?
I don't have that information. No.
Okay. That's fine. So the other thing is, I know that you visit a lot of camps, type 1 camps out there in Washington and Seattle area. So what are some of the things that you learned from the type 1 camps, and how do you try to motivate by having this kind of, being from Benaroyaresearch Institute?
Well, we try, when we go out to events, we try and educate people about the importance of screening, and we offer screening right on the spot. So we try and make screening as convenient as possible for people. If they're unable to come to a screening center, then we can send them a test kit, or we can attend one of these camps or events and talk to family members about it and get them screened right then and there.
Okay. So the other thing is, coming to your family and support. What kind of support system that you had?
When I was diagnosed, my friends and family were amazing. My friends really, they made it light, even though it was a very hard thing to do at the time. Having that light energy and making jokes and just having it, that kind of support was what I needed from them, and it was fantastic. And my family really supported me by getting involved, by being screened, and by attending the walks and coming to my appointments, and they were very, very supportive.
And
Still are.
Still are. That's good. That's good.